Hello and welcome to this tutorial. Before we start, I'm going to be starting a new series called Blender Basics. It's aimed towards people who have little to no knowledge in Blender or just 3D in general, who also want to make a montage or a 3D montage quickly without being really good at 3D. In today's video, I will be going over navigation of Blender. However, I also do plan on making videos on modeling, texturing, lights, camera, and animation. If you are interested in learning 3D in a lot more detail, I will link some resources that I think are very good and that have a lot more experience than I do. Without further ado, let's get started. Before we get started, if we look in the bottom left down here, we have a mouse icon. Everything that I click on my keyboard or my mouse will appear down here. However, I will be saying everything as I click anyway. So let's take a look what we have on our screen. Our main tab open here is called the 3D port or the viewport. This is where our scene is going to take place. Our scene can be anything that we make of it. So our current scene is a cube, a light and a camera. An example of a standard scene will be buildings, cars, characters, etc. Everything in our scene is a combination of objects. What is an object? An object is anything that you can add to your scene. So if we come up to the left and we click on add with left click, everything we see in this list classes as an object. As you can see, we have a mesh, which can come in different forms. We have cone, torus or like a donut shape, cube. We have a monkey face as well. It can be text. It can be an armature, which is used for rigging characters, which enables them to move. We have lights, cameras, speakers, and even force fields. Next, in our top right, we have something called collections. Think of collections as a way to organize and manage all your objects in your scene. Let's give an example. I'm going to come over to my viewport. I'm going to come up to add. I'm going to come to mesh. And I'm going to add an icosphere. I'm going to click G for grab and Z to move this on the Z axis. Don't worry about the controls for now, I will go over that. Let's say we wanted to categorize our objects. And let's say we wanted to do it based on the object itself. We have two shapes in our scene. We have a light and a camera. What we could do if we choose to is we could come up to our collections, right click and then left click new collection. I'm going to double click on the collection to rename it shapes. I can then click on my icosphere in the collections tab, click and hold left click to drag it into the shapes collection. I'm going to also do the same with the cube. Now we have separated our shapes from our camera and our light. Let's say, for example, we don't want to see any of the shapes that we have in our scene. What we can do is we can come to our collections, click on this little eye here. It's named hide in viewport. If we click it, it's going to make all of our shapes disappear in our viewport, assuming they are in the shapes collection. We can also do this in the render view if we wanted to disable it in a render. We're now going to left click on our hide in viewport button to bring back our shapes. Collections can be used in more sophisticated ways, such as with geometry nodes and particle systems. However, the main benefit of using them is to keep everything organized and to improve your workflow. Right underneath our Collections tab, we have a Properties tab. The Properties tab is going to allow us to change different properties or options in regards to our scene. It's also going to change depending on if you have an object selected or not. So if I come and select the cube by left clicking it, as you can see, the properties have not changed. If I were to now click on the light, as you can see, some of the properties have been removed and others added. For example, we have a object data property specifically for the light, which allows us to change the type of light that it is, the color, how bright or powerful the light is. Some examples of what you can change in the Properties tab. You can change the render engine as well as the quality of your render and the quality of the viewport. Here we can change the resolution of how a render comes out. You've also got the aspect ratio and the frame rate if you want to make an animation. You've also got the output folder. This is the folder that you decide you want your renders to be saved in. Next, we are going to talk about navigation. Before we get started, I'm going to come up to the top left, click on Edit and Preferences. You'll then want to click on Input. I currently have these input settings, which is going to change the way I navigate in Blender. These are the settings that I'm going to stick with, and it's going to depend on your setup. If you're using a laptop, for example, you will probably not have a number key pad. What you can do is you can click on Emulate Number Pad, and this will change the number key hotkeys to your normal number key hotkeys. I also have Emulate a 3D button mouse on. With that being said, let's get into the navigation. So first of all, we have left click, and of course you just move your cursor with your mouse. You can left click to select any object. You can also hold down left click to select multiple objects. You can use right click, which will get different options up depending on what you're right clicking on. You can hold down middle mouse button and use your mouse to rotate up, left, down and right. And this will pan around your 3D cursor, which is this red circle here. You can also use your middle mouse wheel to scroll into the viewport. So I'm scrolling away from me to zoom in. And if I to zoom out, you will scroll towards you. You can also hold down a shift on your keyboard and middle mouse button to move your view up, down, left and right without being attached to the center of the world. Next, let's talk about how we can move objects around. So in order to add an object, you can come up to Add, find whatever you want to add and give it a left click. I'm just going to add a cylinder. Whilst your cylinder is selected, which you can tell by the orange outline, you can also tell by looking in your collections and what has a blue bar going over it. First, let's learn about grab. In order to move this object, we're going to use the grab tool. In order to activate the grab tool, we're going to click G on our keyboard. And you can use the mouse to move it around, as so. You can right click to cancel any movement, or you can use left click to confirm the movement. If you're not happy with the movement and you have confirmed it, you can press Ctrl Z and that will undo the last action that you have done. Also, by clicking G, we can move our object along the 3 axes. The 3 axes are the x-axis, which is the red one. You can also move it along the y-axis, which is the green one. And you can move it along the z-axis, which is the blue one. If you forget the shortcut key, if we look in the top left of our screen, we have this cursor, which is move. You can give it a click and it will come up with these 3 arrows. If you click on one of them and you drag your mouse, it will move it based on that axis. You can also click and hold where this white circle is and move your mouse in order to move it in a free-flowing state. I'm going to move our cylinder over on the x-axis, and we're going to talk about the 2 other ways you can transform your objects. The next thing we can do is rotate our object. Again, you have your rotate transformation up in the top left. We're going to click R, which is the shortcut key for rotate. And again, you can rotate freely by just using the mouse. You can also rotate on the x-axis using the mouse, rotate on the y-axis, and rotate on the z-axis. Again, if you want to rotate it on a specific axis, you will click R for rotate and X if you want to rotate it on only the x-axis. Whilst you're doing this, make sure you move your mouse in order to do the rotation. This also goes for moving and scaling. If you want to rotate your object a specific amount, you can click R for rotation. Click X, Y, or Z if you want to do it on a specific axis. So I'm going to do it on the x-axis. Then I'm going to input a number that I want it to be rotated by. So I want to rotate this by 90 degrees. Once you have done that, left click or click enter to confirm. And as you can see, it has rotated by 90 degrees on the x-axis perfectly. Finally, we're going to talk about scaling. Scaling can also be found in the top left. The shortcut key for scaling is S. I'm going to move my viewport a little bit so I can demonstrate this a bit better. I'm going to click S for scale, and I'm going to move my mouse away to enlarge the object or towards the object to shrink it. Again, you can scale based on the axis. So if I want to scale only on the X, it's going to make it wider. If I scale it on the Y, it's going to make it longer. And if I scale it on the Z, it's going to make it thinner or taller. There is also a really cool way that you can navigate the viewport, and it basically allows you to navigate it as if you were playing a video game. So the shortcut key for this is Shift tilde, and you can move by using the W, A, S and D keys, just as if you're in a video game, and you'd use your mouse to control the cursor. You can also hold down Shift and that will speed up the movement. You can also click space whilst looking at a mesh, and it will essentially TP straight to it. Once you have done that, you can either click left click to confirm your new location, or you can right click to go back to your previous location. If for some reason you can't get this to work, you can also change the hotkeys. You can do this by going to Edit, Preferences, Key Map, Then you'll scroll down until you see 3D view. You're going to want to click on the arrow key to open it, like so. Then you're going to scroll down until you find View Navigation Walk/Fly. And as you can see, my hotkey is Shift and tilde. If you want to change it for something else, all you need to do is click on it and then enter a new hotkey or a combination of keys. That is the basic of navigation in Blender. I hope you found this useful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below or join our Discord. Thank you and see ya.